Welcome to the Digication Scholars Conversation Series. I'm your host, Joan Watson. In this episode, you'll hear part 2 of my conversation with Clarence Chan from LaGuardia Community College in Queens, New York. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of the Digication Scholars Conversation Series can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app.
You are about to hear part 2 of our conversation with Clarence Chan from LaGuardia Community College. Please be sure to listen to our previous episode to hear part 1 of this conversation.
What do you feel has been the greatest challenge when implementing portfolio use? And that can be from among your students and colleagues, because I know sometimes colleagues are a bigger challenge sometimes than students. But just in terms of getting the idea out there that it is a valuable tool consistent with the pedagogy.
Challenge is always there. I mean, again, whether it's technology or learning itself, that's to be expected. Over the years, I think, again, and I don't think it's unique to our experience, it's been having both the student buy-in as well as, to initially establish an overall, among colleagues and my faculty team to, and I have to say, I mean, for us, it's already fortunate because of the nature of our profession, perhaps, or people that, we have that, this more or less a selective group of students where they understand that whether they like it or not, or they think that is useful for them or not, they know it's part of their learning. And again, it's also a little bit of nature of healthcare provider. We are pretty good rule follower, if you will, and because there's so much, we live with so much regulations and nature of healthcare in general that if you ask them to do it, they'll do it, whether they understand it or not, or they like it or not. So I think in some way my faculty team in some ways is similar in that way. But through time, I think if you do it consistent enough and hopefully uh, able to put some meaning behind why we do what we do, that I think trying to capture more of that buy-in is the key, and it will. I don't think it will totally eliminate that challenge, but I think that's always been the tough one that I think trying to get, because for us also, and of course spending years of talking to so many colleagues around the country, even around the world, when it comes to the portfolio experience, a lot of people talks about the biggest challenge being having administrative support or having the resources and the infrastructure. I have to say, being in LaGuardia, if you want to do portfolio, and it's not, all kidding aside, literally the school will pay you to do it, and
Oh,
that's a fact.
nice.
I mean, we get,
Yeah.
stipends, we get support, we get professional development, and for years we have a structure in place, and then for anybody that wants to do it and wants to further their understanding and usage, we get all kinds of support, from the very top all the way to, you
Very
know,
good.
IT. We have a team of technology mentors. We have, I mean, literally, if in fact, I'm still doing that every semester when I bring in a new cohort of students, even if they have never heard of the word ePortfolio, we always set up orientation sessions. The school will provide us with technology mentors, and uh, even if you need one-on-one support, both for the faculty and for individual student, the school is willing to provide all of that. If that's all you got to do, just to say, hey, I want to try this, I want to play with this, and I want to see how it's going to support my teaching. Uh, you know, we doesn't we almost never got any pushback from it. So in that sense, I really can't say we struggle that much in that regard. So I think so therefore the biggest challenge really is, uh, whether or not people want to do it. And then once people, but for those who wants to do it, honestly, the other biggest challenge honestly is really time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I have certainly students who told me it's not they don't want to do it or they don't see the value
Mhm.
to it. It just, look, you're
Right.
killing us with all the exam. You're killing us. We're here to learn how to become a therapist in 18 months.
The
Uh,
reality of
yeah,
student life.
yeah.
Yes,
I just
absolutely.
can't. It's just too many plates to juggle. And I
Sure,
think
sure.
that element of it is real, whether it's for student or for all of us. The same way. I mean,
Absolutely.
it took me many years to build on the portfolio of my own, and I know how much time it takes, and certainly every time I look at it, I say it looked ugly, or I need to update,
Oh,
or things didn't work, or yeah, yeah, it's a time. I would say that's the other biggest piece.
good. Yeah. Which I think is really interesting too, because given all of those life variables that exist outside of what we want to impart to our students and the things we give them to do because it's good for them, the fact that, you know, portfolios like Willie's, like yours, and then we're going to talk about your accreditation portfolio here in just a minute. The There's a testament there that when things come out of portfolio where people do take that time, it really does speak volumes about, wow, that was time that was well worth it. And I know that we all have different allocation processes with our time, but I think that the things that you have as lasting artifacts of these different moments, whether it's your own professional portfolio or those that your students have created, it's really nice to have those,
Mhm,
for the long term.
mhm,
Um, so let me now kind of move over to this idea about your accreditation success. So first of all, congratulations, because assessment is a bugaboo for everybody. It's a reality that we all
yep,
face.
yep, yep,
And especially in professional programs that have these different external accreditors,
mhm,
institutions have their own masters to please.
mhm,
But for especially the medical and health science related disciplines, there are lots of accrediting bodies who are always watching.
mhm.
So, can you tell us how you used portfolios for that process? And we can pull up your portfolio if you'd
Sure.
like.
Yeah. Well, first, I think, follow up on what we just mentioned earlier. I think one is having the availability of something like, what we have in terms of ePortfolio. It's an incredible luxury. It's a luxury that I have to say, again, going back in terms of time, for instance, it's a luxury some people cannot afford. So, you know, so in that sense, I always feel that we are fortunate enough that we have this available to us. So in fact, this started, of course, a couple years back when we were preparing for the, reaccreditation, that I know I need to have another platform, another way to kind of both organize the information that needed to be shared,
Mhm.
but also in a way, I think especially for LaGuardia, it's always been heralded as one of our signature pedagogy for our
Mm,
campus. And so, in some way, I also feel that we need to represent and
sure.
and if we talk about how much we utilize portfolio for student learning and to support pedagogy, and it's a programmatic requirement and all that. So I feel that it's just so natural that therefore we should also have a way to utilize the portfolio to, if nothing else, just to showcase, to share with the accreditation body, along with, of course, the it doesn't replace any of their required elements. That
Mhm.
So again, the luxury of it is that, yeah, I mean, in addition to fulfilling all of their requirement documentations and all the pieces that needs to be put in place, it come in the whole big volumes uh, you know, now of course it's all digitized, but years ago we actually, I mean, I remember 10 years ago, the previous accreditation, uh, we actually have to create boxes of files, three carton, the boxes, and go to the post office and ship it to them. And meantime,
Oh
when
my.
the team come to on site, they carry those boxes on the airplane and fly to
Wow.
our campus and to verify all those information. So now, of course, it's all digitized. So that obviously didn't change. It just other than the fact that it's all, in a digital format. But beyond that, I feel that, you know, if I really want to highlight and showcase or to really clarify some of the information that when the team are here and also even prior to arriving, that hey, let me show you this. And that's what prompted I created a separate portfolio just for the purpose of accreditation, uh, to give them all the pieces that they need, to show them a little bit about the school, a little bit about our health science department, and then narrow down into the specifics of looking at the program, our organizations, the faculty qualification, faculty development, their professional development experience, and then kind of cap it off with again showcasing a student's portfolio to let them see if they because ultimately I think they with all the technicality and formality if you will, it still come down to one single question. Is this a good program? Are we helping our student learning what they need to learn?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's really what, whether you call it assessment or not. I mean, that's the ultimate outcome. Whether
Absolutely.
or not
Yes.
students are learning. Uh, so I think these are all the ways that we can kind of express ourselves.
Hmm.
Uh,
Very good.
and it
Yeah.
did came in handy, of course, because when the team arrive on campus, they have 4 days essentially doing accreditation visits, and they are on campus through that time. Obviously, the team also go through reams and reams of documentations and
Sure.
review because I'm actually an on-site accreditor myself, so
Hmm.
I know the pain and the fun that behind
Yeah.
evaluating a program. So,
Right.
uh, so I want to have a vehicle so that give them as much information, as much appreciation of the program as possible.
Mhm.
And I always learn, and again, being as a reviewer myself, the more information I can make it easily accessible and digestible and meaningful
Mhm.
to a reviewer, chances are, you have less question, you have less issue, you have less challenges that, so those little bit of extra work that I put in, and, it's not that little, it took me a long time,
Right.
like any work put together. But I think that extra piece uh, allow us to really put the accreditor at ease and seeing, okay, this stuff is real. We're not just creating a bunch of fake document just to make believe. So these are again real tangible. Uh, it's nothing like pictures and again that digital way of featuring information, especially those that appreciate it and like that kind of you know mode of communication. Uh,
Right.
I think it takes away some of their guesswork and minimize some of their doubts and questions. Not necessarily
Right.
because we have anything to hide. I mean, certainly, you know, we do have a strong program. And we've been blessed with really great set of faculties uh,
Yeah.
and also great students. Uh, so if nothing else, the portfolio just feature those pieces of it so that the accreditation process can go on a little smoother, and if nothing else, I think it's just less boring and just looking at
Sure. Yeah.
just a bunch of papers and documents and text and text.
Exactly. Yeah, and it gives a nice, remnant too for the team that they can look back and be
Oh
thoughtful
yeah,
and
yeah,
explore
yeah.
links and things like that.
And
Did you get some good feedback from your, site visit about the portfolio? Did they comment on
it's funny of all the things, and certainly I said got the information they need, and they appreciate the you know what's being featured and so that I think that aspect they certainly appreciate it. actually, they really only have one comment and one question in some way that
Oh,
I had to respond to was, what was the because I was saying that because the student owned and student driven portfolio.
mhm,
Uh,
right.
so immediately, and I think it was interesting because one of the accreditor, her background, she had a legal background. She's actually a lawyer,
Mm. Oh,
so
yes.
she's a DPT as well as a lawyer. So her
Interesting.
her question, and the only question about the portfolio is, it's in terms of privacy and legality and the
Mhm,
ownership, which of
right.
course, which is logical, and I think it's an absolutely appropriate question, and that we able to, of course, obviously, Digication have a set of guideline and usage as far as privacies and not that dissimilar to many of the social platform in that sense. But I think it is something that not just the program, I think across the college as well as I think anybody who's involved in any aspect of using portfolio as another media to share education, that uh, the issue of ownership, the issue of privacy, as well as you know how ultimately the information being used and being shared and all being taken, you know, a question and concerns that I have certainly continued dialogue with our teams on campus, campus wide, but also talking to colleagues and of course I'm talking to folks at education and to Jeff, and these are things that we constantly need to think about. And in some way, I can't say that we can resolve all of it, and some of it still, even for myself, uh, I'm not 100% clear in terms of what is the best way. I mean, I don't know if there is
Mhm,
a guaranteed
right.
way of addressing, all the different aspects of using, social platform in some way. The more flexibility, the more availability you make it, and certainly, therefore, it's like any powerful tool. It has its element of danger. You know,
Indeed.
whether it's
Yes.
fire or nuclear energy.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And it's another point of learning too for students. And I find particularly in health science related fields, you have a whole different, you have HIPAA to consider.
Mhm,
And so the student owns the portfolio, but then the things that the student chooses to display in the portfolio also need to be
mhm.
very carefully guarded.
Yes, yes, and
So
those are
they're
the thing we definitely make it very explicit to in
yes,
terms
yes.
of
And which is interesting because that's a whole other layer of, information literacy.
Mhm.
And all of these sort of things kind of coalesce into a really good learning opportunity.
Oh,
Part
yep,
of that
yep,
exploration and discovery, right? Right, Dr.
yep,
Chan?
yep,
Just
absolutely,
always,
absolutely. For student,
always.
I our curriculum, I start them off as one of the very first course is medical ethics and legal,
Oh, nice. Yes.
and I always tell them it's a 6 weeks course. I say, "It's hopefully 6 weeks from now, you will have more questions and more doubts, and you will know less than you thought you knew when you first came in to the program.
Ah,
And if that's how you feel at the end, then I know then we've done a little something for you, and because that's really the goal, like you're saying, having the opportunity to explore. I mean, even the worst experience, in learning, it's still a learning experience, and that's true whether it's learning a subject matter or technique, or using a technology platform, or
mhm.
going to clinical and working with a patient that you're really not comfortable with, or having a clinical instructor that you can't get along with. I say this,
Yeah.
I don't care how bad that experience been, you learn something,
Yes.
and that is still a learning experience that's valuable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really appreciate your time today. You've given us lots of things to think about, lots of really good stuff. Before I close, though, I'd like to ask you, anyone who's listening, can you give some advice about using e-portfolios for teaching, learning, or
Mhm.
assessment? What advice would you give folks?
Uh, it goes back to, I think, really one very simple element. In order for somebody to want to do something, they have to believe that it's meaningful. It has to be something that, uh, let's say, we have to convince people, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
You know, and if you can give people that meaning, I think the rest they're gonna go discover. They're gonna go, you know, again explore and even experiencing challenges that there's a. But if they know why they're doing it, if this is what they want, then they'll go get back up and go get some more and try something new again. I think in terms of the nuts and bolts, I think for the big, for the people that are in the beginning or a program or even a campus, couple of things I've learned over the years and having worked with different campuses as well is that you got to start out small and you got to start out slow and have patience with it, just like any learning. It's gonna take
Mhm.
time and expect challenges uh, and I think the best way to really at least minimize some of that is to have some early adapter that just simply embrace it like most things, that process that there's always going to be some people who, they always say, why their people has to be the first one to watch Star Wars, so they're willing to stand in line
That's
for overnight, you know. So there will always be those people that are excited about something new and want to explore, and those explorer that, uh, take advantage of those, and assemble that limited number of members of the team to kind of start developing and building. I think that's the best way to start. And then for places or campus or programs that really want to take that to scale, that I think the only real way to do this is to have really a team approach that everything from administrations to IT to having the resources and of course the faculty, buy-in and all of that, to be able to assemble all of those. I think that's really the only way, you can sustain it and to continue to refine and further that movement for whatever that. But again, behind it still comes down to if it doesn't meet the needs, if it doesn't have a purpose and doesn't give people meaning on why you're doing it, then none of that matters. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Very good. Yes, excellent. And it needs to be congruent with that pedagogy for sure. Thank you, Clarence, so much. It's been really lovely speaking with you. And I hope that we can talk with you again in the future about other things
sure, sure. And
and that you'll keep on keeping on.
we'll do, yeah. And we're happy to you know be part of that learning process and continue to develop both the pedagogy behind it and again supporting student learning in whatever way we can. Yeah,
That's terrific. And thank you so much for your many contributions to the ePortfolio community at large. I'll make sure that we put a link to your recent article in a prominent spot so folks can have a look at that, as well as share the portfolios that you've shared with us today.
sure. All
So
right, very
thank
good.
you.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you,
so much.
and you stay well. Take care.
Thank you.
The Digication Scholars Conversation Series is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative e-portfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. This episode was produced by Drew Albanesius. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app. Thanks for listening.